Hi, I'm your host, Brittany Caldwell, and I thank you for joining us on Becoming, a show where we encourage, inspire, and motivate women to become all that God has created us to be. And one of the ways that we do this is by sharing our stories of faith, perseverance, setbacks, and victories. And today's guest, who will be sharing her story, is veteran local news anchor Brigida Mack. So, Brigida Mack is an engaging and dynamic communicator. She has spent nearly 2 decades honing her skills, first as an award winning TV news anchor, and now as a motivational speaker, host, and content creator. A native Charlottean, Brigida has carefully built her brand, a unique combination of authenticity, credibility, and engaging personality. And I can't wait for you to meet her. So, hi, Brigida. How are you?
Hi, Brittany. I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to come and chat with me a little bit today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well, being a Charlatan myself, I remember watching you on WBTV, and I just admire your confidence and just the joy that you radiate on the screen. And I
Thank
could
you
tell that
so
you
much.
truly enjoyed your work. It's obvious with you being an award winning journalist with a career that spans 20 years. I can tell that you love what you do.
Mhm.
And you recently had a bit of a kind of a career shift in a way,
Yeah.
which we'll get into later. But I want to first start off by just asking you a little bit about how you started in journalism. So how did it all begin?
Well, honestly, Brittany, I have wanted to do TV news journalism since I was a little girl. My mom says that I used to interview everyone that I would meet, that I never met a stranger. I told everybody growing up that I wanted to be the Black Barbara Walters because Oprah, wasn't the eponymous name and figure that she is now when I was growing up. And I mean, as young as fifth grade, I'm aging myself here, but folks in, in my age group will remember TGIF, right? The Friday night
Oh
lineup,
yeah. Yes.
Full House, Family Matters.
Mhm.
And as much as I loved it, I equally looked forward to watching 2020 with
Oh
Barbara
wow.
Walters and Hugh Downs. And so my love of journalism, of telling stories, of finding people's stories started when I was a kid. And that sort of laser focus never left me all through junior high and high school. And I applied to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill,
Okay.
and it was the only school I applied to. Pro tip,
Mhm.
I don't recommend that. But at the time, I was so focused on getting into the journalism school because I knew it had a nationally acclaimed and accredited program. My mom, behind my back, applied to East Carolina University because she thought it was madness that I
Mhm.
didn't have a safety school. And I said, I'm
Right.
going to Chapel Hill.
Mhm.
By the grace of God, I got in and um, worked with the student newscast there, Carolina Week, and the relationships that I made in that venture actually led to my first job in
Wow. Okay.
Charlottesville. Yeah, Charlottesville, Virginia. And of course, when I say that now, everyone's eyes get big because, what we know about Charlottesville, Virginia has changed.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
when I was there, it was, college town, UVA. It hadn't really been put on the map yet.
Mhm.
And the man who would become my boss, Dave Cupp, came to Carolina on sort of a visiting professorship. There we go,
Mhm.
program. And the contact and relationship that I began with him in undergrad led to me getting a job offer the day after graduation.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Like how does that happen? Only you.
Well, I have to be honest. When the
Mhm.
favor of God is on your life,
Amen.
that opens doors that no man can shut.
Mm, mm,
And so I know that even back then, the favor of God has been on my life
mm,
and using my gifts, and
mhm.
operating in my purpose, even when I was, just a little young thing,
Yeah,
little
I
young
love that.
bullfrog.
Mhm.
Um, and I tell people I didn't have a conventional start in the business because back then you sent out a resume tape. Now it's a reel, right? With a
Mhm.
link that you can
Right.
send out. But back then it
Mhm.
was an actual tape, a
Mhm.
VHS tape. And typically, I mean, you send out so many trying to get a first job. And I made several of them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember vividly making the resume tape and
Mm-hmm.
throwing a whole bunch of suit jackets in the
Mm-hmm.
back of my car, teaming up with one of my classmates and shooting stand-ups
Wow.
around Chapel Hill to
Right.
create the montage for the first
Mm-hmm.
part of my resume tape.
Mm-hmm.
But I actually only sent out one tape for my
Mm-hmm.
first job,
Mm-hmm.
and it was to the station in Charlottesville, Virginia, NBC WVIR,
Mm-hmm.
and again got a job
You
offer
got
the
it.
day after graduation.
Well, I see a pattern in your life for sure. A pattern of you have your mindset on something and you go after it. And by the grace of God, it's been your first choice. So
Mhm.
that's pretty neat in itself. And I love how with your story, you were in your stride. Like you're working, you're in Charlottesville, Virginia, then at WBTV, and life is
Actually,
great. Oh, go ahead.
actually, so I started at WSOC Channel
Oh,
9
okay.
first.
Oh, at WSOC.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
I,
And
I I'm kind of a unicorn in the sense that I've worked at
then,
three, well, technically four, but three
yeah.
Charlotte TV stations.
Wow. Okay.
I started out at Channel 9. I was there for
Mm-hmm.
almost 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then it was WBTV. Then it
Gotcha.
was WJZY, Fox
CY.
46, which of
Mhm,
course has now rebranded itself as Queen
mhm.
City News. And I interned at WCNC.
Oh, wow. So you just hit all of them. They all know you. They
Again,
all love you.
the favor of God, because
That
that's
truly
very
is.
unusual for
Mhm.
someone to have worked at so many stations in the same city.
Stations.
And it's my hometown. Like, that's
Mhm,
why I say, my faith is really
mhm,
the cornerstone
mhm.
of who I am, my
Right.
foundation. I grew up in the church
Mhm.
because that's the only way that I could have led the life professionally and personally that I've been able to lead. The
Right.
favor of God has been on my life.
Yeah, for sure. That is so true. And speaking of the favor of God, and just you being able to hear the voice of God,
Mhm.
you felt a tug on your life to shift from WBTV, if I'm correct, to make a
Mhm.
shift. What was that tug? How did that feel? And how did you hear the voice of God? What did that feel like for you?
It was very disconcerting. And I say that because, when we're in our stride, as you said, and you're rocking and rolling and firing on all cylinders, when you start to feel that tug and hear the voice of God, which I heard very clearly, might I add,
Okay.
you're just like, but why, Lord? Like, I'm over here, I'm in my
Okay.
lane, I'm
Right.
operating in my purpose, I'm using my
Mhm.
God-given gifts.
You called
Like,
me here.
right.
Mhm.
And now you're telling me to step away, and honestly, I felt the tug well before I decided to trust God and step out on faith.
Okay.
Um, at least 2 years prior to
Oh, wow. Okay.
actually leaving
Mhm.
WBTV, because I remember asking God, well, what would I do if I'm not on TV? Like, who
Mhm.
am I if I'm not bringing viewers the
Mhm.
news?
Mhm.
And so, when we think we know better than God, just
Yes, I've been there.
be bopping along.
Mhm.
And he began to make things more and more uncomfortable for me.
Oh,
And the
okay.
discomfort became so great that really I had
Mm.
no choice but to trust God and to leave,
Wow. Okay.
you know. And so there were people who thought I was nuts. What do you mean you're leaving? What are you going? And it was, what are you going to do? I don't know.
Mhm.
But I will tell you, as scary as it was deciding to trust God, once I did, the fear dissipated. I didn't
Wow.
know what was coming. No
Mhm.
idea. Like,
Mhm.
I'm talking willingly leaving the land of direct deposits,
Mhm. Right.
right?
Right.
And I didn't know where he was leading me, but I felt such peace with my decision,
Mhm.
which sounds very counterintuitive because I was at WBTV for a decade, and
Right.
being there allowed me to do so many things and so much growth. It's where I became a full-time anchor. It's where I became an award-winning journalist, like all
Mhm.
of these things. And God, you're asking me to move, you're asking me to leave. But
Right.
he was calling me to a bigger platform. And
Mhm.
the interesting thing is, when I left BTV, the move to that platform included a detour, which was to
Mm.
hop in with another Charlotte news
Okay.
station, which was
Okay.
Fox 46,
Hmm.
WJZY. Um, and I only spent a year there and then left because,
Okay.
again, God, like literally opening doors, shutting doors
Okay.
so that He would move me where He needed to move me. And
Hmm.
now I know that
Hmm.
He's calling me to a platform that's bigger than local news. And
Okay.
that's not to say that I would never go back. No, never say never. I have really been of the mindset, Lord, order my steps. I want more of Him and less of me.
Hmm.
We've done it B Max way.
Right.
So really just submitting to Him and what His will is for me
Hmm.
and the doors that He's opened since then, right? It can be so hard for us as people of faith to trust God.
Yeah,
We can
for
say,
sure.
"Oh, I trust God." Okay, God's going to
Mhm.
be like, "Really?
Exactly.
Do
Okay.
you?
Let's prove it.
Let's
Hmm.
prove it." But when you decide to, the way that He opens doors in your life, the opportunities that just begin to come, the people that He places in your life to
Right.
help you take advantage of said opportunities,
Yeah.
I mean, hashtag mind blown.
I wonder
So
if it's because you trusted God in the past, and even you trusting God right now, that's helped you hear the voice even more. It's helped you know, okay, this is God versus this is
mhm,
me versus this is
mhm.
someone else's advice.
Absolutely.
It's pretty powerful. Hmm.
Because, there are people, it's all, well-intentioned
Hmm.
folk, who, this is who you are. You have to stay. The community depends
Hmm.
on you, particularly, our community, the Black
Hmm.
community, and
Hmm.
that worked for a while. Me saying,
Yeah,
"Oh, okay, but there are ways that I can represent our community and give back to our
for
community and
sure.
pour into our community that aren't necessarily within a TV screen."
Yeah, and you know what too? The danger in that is putting so much pressure and weight on yourself.
Mm.
And forgetting that actually everything I do is because of God. God called me to it. So
There
He can
you
put
go.
someone else in this place. He has a plan, and I'm gonna trust in that plan. It's not really about me at the end of the day. So
Yeah,
yeah.
audience of one, and I think sometimes we forget that. I'm catering to an audience of one,
Mhm.
him, and
Right.
as long as he's good,
Hmm.
right? Like the video series that I do on my social media channels, thought of the day.
Hmm.
One of the times I do one on Fridays, Faithful Fridays. It's spirituality based because my faith is such a huge part of my life. But I talked about how, when God calls you to do something, like
Hmm.
that's your assignment. And it's a calling, not a conference call.
Yeah.
And so, people want to weigh in, but that's not how the calling works. So when God is
Right.
calling you to do something, calling you to move, calling
Hmm.
you to switch gears after 2 decades.
Hmm.
I was 22 years old when I got
Hmm.
my first job professionally, but really working on TV in Chapel Hill since I was like 20. So
Hmm.
literally been doing this for most of my adult life, all of my
Right.
adult life. And now you're calling me to completely step outside that. And
Hmm.
I'm still using my
Of
gifts,
course.
just he's just moving me in a different way. And I even now don't clearly see the path, but I
Mhm.
trust
You trust them. And I love how you mentioned assignment. I was talking to my brother-in-law the other day. He's in the military,
him.
and we were talking about calling. And a lot
Mhm,
of times there can be this huge emphasis on calling, like what is my calling?
mhm,
And he gave me a new perspective to look at it as an assignment.
mhm,
And so your calling may be, yeah, to speak in front of people. It may be to be a communicator, to be a creative, or whatever that is. But the assignment may change along the way within your calling.
mhm,
So your assignment was to be at WJZY, WBTV, all of these stations at that time. Your assignment now may be to be a content creator,
mhm.
So it takes, for me, it helped take some of the weight off of like this huge, grandiose thing of I have to do my calling. And if I don't, then I just miss it. Instead of, let me
Mhm.
just do the last thing God called me to do. That was my assignment. Let me do
Yeah.
this assignment. So one of the things I love about your story too is that you talk about being obedient to God and being a little uncomfortable. when you made the transition, or maybe very uncomfortable, and it made me think about the story of Elijah, how God called Elijah to so many different places of uncomfortability.
Mhm.
When speaking in front of King Ahab, with going to Kerith, which was a place in the middle of nowhere with no food and no water, but God provided. Then
Mhm.
going to Zarephath and having to stay with a widow who she herself said she was on her dying bed, her and her son, but God provided. And it was
Mm.
like in each of those instances, God provided for Elijah, and it was uncomfortable, but Elijah was obedient. And a lot of times we can miss the blessing
Mm.
if we're in our comfort zone, if we're
That
too
part.
comfortable. And a lot
Mhm.
of times we have to get outside of it. And I love for you, you got outside of your comfort zone and you trusted in God and you were obedient. So I feel like a lot of people will be encouraged and inspired through you just sharing that part of your story.
For sure, but I don't wanna gloss over, like, that how difficult it is to be obedient, especially when you're hearing all of this
Mm,
outside noise and
mhm,
chatter, you
mhm.
know?
Right,
I don't want people to think, "Oh, it's like a light switch." I
right.
mean, it's a conscious choice, and I feel like, one,
Mhm.
you have to consistently reaffirm that you're gonna
Yeah,
continue to be obedient, but when you are, he
mm,
will
he will.
provide, like, he
He will.
will. I mean, every time I think, "Oh, okay," over the past year, I'm like, "Well, mm, maybe this motivational speaking, content creation, maybe I just need to, go get a job in
Mhm,
TV." Like, I know how to
mhm.
do that.
Yeah.
Every time I thought,
Mm,
another
mm,
door would open. I'd get
mhm.
another email, another phone call, like, literally.
Wow. Okay.
And so when you are obedient to him, he will take care of the rest. Like, what does his
Mhm.
word say? Faith without works is dead. You can have
Yeah.
all the faith in the world, but if
Mhm.
you are not willing to do the work, and
The
sometimes doing the
work.
work is just being obedient
Yep.
and letting him, you know, direct your path, letting him, he's got the blueprint. Like, we
Mhm.
operate in the right now, but God
Mhm.
operates in the not yet.
Man.
He's already figured it out. He's
Mhm.
already interceding on
Mhm.
your behalf. You've
Mhm.
just got to faith it out. You've got to walk it out. And
Mhm.
so it is not easy to be obedient. We can be
Mhm.
fearful of being obedient because we're thinking, well, how's this going to happen? And how is he going to do this? How am I
How's it
going
gonna
to
play out?
do it?
Exactly.
But if you will take that step, he will blow
Mhm.
your mind.
Mhm.
I'm a living testimony of that.
You're right. You're right. And you talked about different voices coming. And I think one of the things for me that has been difficult with being obedient is the voice in my own head.
Hmm.
It's so easy for me sometimes to tell other people, like, no, this is what God called me to do. This is, to shun those voices out. But when I get in my own head, that's when it's difficult. How have you been able to combat the voices in your own head?
Um, For me, I think, you know, being intentional about spending time with God every day. You know, I made a promise to myself and to God that before you check your email, check a text, click into your phone, like you need to click into God, right? You need to connect with Him.
Yeah,
And
so true.
so, making intentional time for Him and reminding myself that as long as I keep my mind stayed on Him,
Mhm,
my eyes stayed on Him, like, everything's okay. It's when you start getting into your head
mhm,
that you begin to start worrying about all of these things. Like,
mhm,
worry slanders every promise of God.
mhm,
And so when you will be intentional about spending time with him, however that is, devotional, praise and worship,
mhm,
I love putting on my gospel playlists every morning or even when I'm getting ready, any time of day. Like, I
mhm,
try to always I always want to be in the spirit of God. I always want to be
mhm.
inviting him into my presence, my space, my heart, my body, my soul, because that helps keep the voices in
I
check,
love that.
constant,
Love that.
constantly and consistently seeking him.
Yeah, that's really good. Love how you said it. It's a consistent thing. It's a
Mhm,
constant thing. We practice
mhm,
that. Yeah,
mhm.
really good. So now you have branched out as an independent consultant. You mentioned some of the stuff that you're doing now on YouTube. Tell us a little bit about what you have going on now. I know you have Team No Sugar, you have your thought of the day. Just tell us about it all. You're passionate about health and wellness.
Yeah, I am. You know, it's so funny how I'm still able to reach people, right? I got into TV news and being a journalist because I love sharing stories and I love impacting people. You know, I always say the world has enough critics, be an encourager. So I really try to encourage. And that's what my Thought of the Day series was born out of on Facebook. Started it way back in 2014 when it was just a caption that I would write and a picture. And I remember the first time that I realized, oh, this is kind of a thing with people. I just forgot to post it one day.
Okay.
And I got so many, inbox and emails like, what happened to the thought of the day? And I said, oh, this is speaking to people. And so I continued to do it. And then I started doing it in video form in 2019, actually, after I left WBTV and taking that leap of faith. And people responded to it. And over the years, it's grown to a video form. And then each day of the week, I do it Monday through Friday, has a theme. So the Monday mantra, tell it like it is Tuesday, Wednesday wisdom, real talk Thursday, and faithful Fridays. And then I began putting them on Instagram, which allowed it to reach a completely new segment of folks who'd never heard of it. And that was at the suggestion of an influencer who's been a mentor to me as I branch out into really influencing and content creation. And people DM me really personal things about how something I said impacted them, or they needed to hear that, or they needed that reminder. And a lot of times I'm saying something that I'm talking to myself as well as anybody else who needs to hear it when I'm doing it. So that has continued to grow, and I love that. And of course, I do speaking engagements, hosting, all things that I did for years, affiliated with with one station or another. But now I'm an independent, motivational speaking, keynote speaking. I do all of that, and so I'm excited to really branch out into that.
Yeah.
And sort of the turning point to that was the fireside style chat interview that I had with Gabrielle Union last fall. It was the Charlotte stop of her book tour.
Awesome.
We're going to need, do you have anything stronger?
Okay.
Which is sort of a follow-up to her first book, We're Going to Need More Wine.
Right.
And she, of course, has been so open about everything, her journey to parenthood, raising a child who is transgender, and all of these things. And so getting the opportunity to share the stage with her and to interview her live, I'm tapping into all the skills, not only the God-given gift, but all the skills that I've had. And so since then, doors have just continued to open. So I'm doing that. I'm rebooting Team No Sugar, which I'm really excited about.
Okay.
So Team No Sugar is something actually that I started to save my own life. I didn't know at the time that God would use it as a platform to save the lives and impact the lives and lifestyles of so many others. And so I'm passionate about health and wellness and being active. And I know that movement is medicine and it's connected to our mental health. And so I'm excited to reboot that and bring back the 30-day challenges that everybody knows and loves. And the response has been great. And so it's another way for me to encourage and uplift, which I'm just such a big proponent of. I want people to live their best lives. I want you to know that it's possible, that you do not have to be so, dependent on sugar. I mean, it's only really in the last 5 or 10 years that the FDA has sort of identified sugar as public enemy number one. First you went through the salt, the sodium, and the low-fat, fat-free diet craze of the 80s and 90s, and then recognizing that fat's not the enemy, sodium's not even the enemy, it's sugar. Sugar is as addictive as cocaine. Studies have shown that. And so when you detox inside the 30-day challenge, I mean, it is not easy. I've never said it's easy, but it is doable, and it can really be life changing. And as someone who is a chocoholic and who's never met a carb that she didn't like, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So
I absolutely love what you said. I tried Whole 30 and I could barely make it 30 days. So the fact that you are doing like no sugar, and how long was it at first when you first started it? Team No Sugar?
it was 90
That's what
days.
I thought.
It was a challenge from my trainer at the time.
That is not easy at
It
all,
is
but
not. It
it's
is.
needed.
I needed it. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I couldn't keep up with my photographer in the field. I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs
Hmm.
without being winded.
Hmm.
High blood pressure, diabetes, a lot of things that disproportionately affect Black folks are in my family history. So
Yeah.
I knew that I had to take it
Yeah.
seriously. And, for me, I went what I call the nuclear route.
Hmm.
So we're not doing it. Literally
Yeah.
eating all of the sugar and carbs one day
And
to
just,
not the next. And
yeah.
the first 3 to 7 days are the hardest,
Yeah.
really. I mean, you're
It
kind
is.
of in some ways like white knuckling it through it, because
Hmm.
just like when you detox from smoking, giving up nicotine and
Anything.
drugs, your body does go through withdrawals.
Hmm.
But the outcome, what I sought, was
Hmm.
greater than my
It's worth
discomfort
it.
in that
Hmm.
moment.
Hmm.
And once I got over the hump and you start to see how much better you feel, like the
Yes.
mental clarity, you don't
Yes.
feel foggy,
You're
you
so
don't get
right.
that sluggish feeling, you
Hmm.
sleep better. I mean, the whole nine.
The whole thing. Yep.
That's what I focused on. And of
Mm.
course, an excellent byproduct was losing the weight and
Yeah.
looking great, but
Right.
it was really how I felt, and being able to reprogram my mind. Like, our mind
Mhm.
is the body's strongest muscle. Once you get your mind on board, there's nothing you can't do.
Right.
Like, seriously,
That's for
nothing.
anything.
Exactly. And so that's, yeah, so it was 90
Mhm.
it was 90 days. And
Mhm.
then when I shared my story publicly on the air, I said to people, I said, okay, today's day 89, tomorrow's day
Mhm.
90. I
Mhm.
will have reached my goal, but anybody who wants to try this, I'll go another 30
Look,
days.
wow, look at that.
And so it can be done. And
It
it
can.
for me, it's a lifestyle, not a diet. So I've had moments where, yeah, no, I'm not on Team No Sugar
Mhm.
all the time. It's quarter of 80-20, and sometimes it's 60-40.
Mhm.
But I always come back to it because I know how I feel. I want to, live my best life in all
Exactly.
aspects. And
Exactly.
that includes, your health. And
Yep.
even with some challenges that I've had health wise over the years, where my weight has kind of, done that, I can always come back to it. I can always
Mhm.
come back
Mhm.
to that lifestyle, and what I believe, is the way to go. And
Mhm.
once
Right.
people recognize, okay, I don't have to have sugar every day.
Mhm.
I don't have to have like simple carbs that aren't doing anything for you, but,
Mhm.
turning
Mhm.
to sugar and then
Mhm.
to fat.
Yep. Storing
Um,
fat.
it's an opportunity to reset your metabolism.
Definitely. Definitely. I agree. And I do believe that's what Whole 30 did for me. It was a reset. So I would do something similar to that again if I ever just needed that reset. And then
Mhm.
now you have the tool, you know what to do now. Like you have
Yeah.
the tools, the resources, you know what to do. So I love that. And I look forward to seeing more of your Team No Sugar
Yeah.
posts and challenges and all that good stuff. One thing as you were talking that I thought about was that how when you left local news, you did not have, or maybe you did have the time to do all of these things, but I feel like by leaving, you were able to really focus on thought of the day, more of Team No Sugar, more of these outlets where you're not doing it associated with the news. So that's a beautiful thing in itself, because for me, a lot of times you think, well, like you said, how is this part of the big picture? If I leave, well, what am I going to do? What is God's plan? But you wouldn't have known all that you could do if you didn't leave first.
That part.
And God is showing you, oh no, there's more in you that I'm pulling out of you. Now you have the time to actually do it. So the best is really yet to come. You never know what is next, really.
And that's what I'm so excited about. Like, that's, if I could impart one thing, if you will just take the leap and trust God and be obedient, you get excited about what he can do.
Hmm.
you know? I mean, nothing is impossible for God, you
Hmm.
know? And every time I think, when I'm doing batch creation, as a part of being a content creator, because, thought of the day was so organic. Like I would just sit down and boom, 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 bang it out.
Hmm.
And I would eventually start to schedule the posts on Facebook and that sort of thing. But I liked the organicness, if you will, of of shooting one every single day.
Yeah.
My mentors were like, okay, no, you have to batch this content.
Yeah.
So
Right.
doing that, but it has allowed me to really explore how I can continue to uplift people through the thought of the day and all of these different things now that I have in my brain to do about Tea No
Hmm.
Sugar, that, as much as I loved my career and everything that came with it, local news is particularly, rigid, and being under a
Hmm.
contract
Hmm.
where you were basically beholden to
Hmm.
this company, and they own your likeness. I mean, just all of these things. You can't do anything really
Hmm.
without
Hmm.
getting prior approval. I mean, changing your hair. I mean, the standards aren't as rigid as they were, because I started wearing my natural hair on air
Hmm.
well into my career, and I was
Hmm.
thankful to have a management team at the station that was supportive of it. I know that's not every Black woman's story, but I didn't ask for permission for that, which was very unusual, but I didn't, because I was like, okay, well,
Hmm.
worst case scenario, they don't like it. You're gonna look at it today, though, and
Today.
then we'll go fix it. So
Right.
all of these things having to worry about that I don't now, like
No.
having this autonomy as an independent,
Hmm.
and really, no filter. I mean,
Hmm.
people would be like, "Oh, you tell it like it is on TV." Like, you have no idea. Like, I
What I
sometimes
have in my mind.
my mouth is running faster than my mind, and you
Uh-huh.
saw that on TV. But
Yeah.
there was always this filter that you were
Hmm. Going
talking through.
through.
Yes. And so the authenticity that
Mhm.
comes with this season is
Mhm.
great. So
I
just
love it.
decide to trust him.
Yeah.
Like, God is not going to fail you. God
Right.
is not going to just leave you, right? He
Mhm.
didn't bring us this far just to bring
Mm-mm.
us this far.
Nope.
Man
Nope.
is fickle. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We are humans. Eh,
Exactly. Hmm.
somebody will
Change your
ghost
mind.
you. Yeah,
Hmm.
somebody will not show up. That's not him.
No.
So as much as I don't know what's to come, I'm so excited
You know
about
it's going
that,
to be great.
because yes, I know he's going to blow my mind. Like,
Yeah.
I get excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and that's such a departure from maybe 5 years ago, where I was bound by fear, um, and couldn't see past just getting up every day and continuing to do the news. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
always be grateful for that period.
Yeah. Of
I
course.
loved it, but greater is coming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And speaking of greater is coming, I do want to talk a little bit about what you have coming up, how people can reach you if they want to use you for a speaking engagement.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I always get DMs or Facebook messages, and so I always um push people to email me. I also have a place on my website under bookings where you can send a request form. So it's just brigidamack.com. I'm Brigida Mack across all platforms, keeping it simple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that will not change. But yeah, so I have a booking section on my website that you can fill out a request form, and that comes straight to my inbox. You can also email me, bmack@brigidamack.com. And I try to, when people tag me or DM me or message me, I try to get to every message. It's just me. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Like, there's no one
It's
else.
a team.
So sometimes,
Yes.
sometimes my DMs can be a little on fire.
Okay.
But I do get to everyone. So if you need a speaker, if you need a host, if you need an MC, I'm
Call up
available.
Brigida.
Yes, let's get it. You will not be disappointed, I
No,
guarantee it.
no, and I believe it. And so as far as who you're becoming, because this show is all about becoming,
Mhm.
who do you see yourself becoming?
I see I see more authenticity. Um, I see more just really coming into my own. I really want to be known as someone who uplifts, encourages, motivates, and inspires, and does that through the lens of knowing, who she is and whose she is as the child of a king.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also see um, health coaching, media consulting. That was something that I did think about several years ago that, oh, okay, maybe if I got out of TV, I could do.
Mm-hmm.
I see the sky as the limit. Like when the favor of God is on your life, I'm becoming everything He's calling me to be, everything that comes from being obedient. I see that.
I love that. Everything that comes from being obedient,
Yeah.
which is a lot of things. So that really is the sky's the limit. I love that. I'm gonna take that. Everything that comes from being obedient is who I'm
Mhm.
becoming. So to wrap it up, I know you already shared a piece of advice, but if you have any more advice for someone who may have went through a similar journey as you, or they feel a tug on their heart to, maybe it might be a career change, it might be to step out on faith and just do something that has been on their heart for a while. How would you encourage them? What would you say to them?
I would say to do it. Listen to that tug. I think about the time that I didn't listen. I'm not going to say it's wasted because it brought me to where I am today. But don't delay the move to be obedient and to make that change. And also recognize that if it hasn't happened for you yet, delay does not mean denied. Like everything happens in his time. One of my favorite scriptures is Romans 8:28. All things work together for the good
Love
of
that.
those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. And I feel like the part of the scripture it gets the most shine is all things come to those who love the Lord. Like, oh,
Yeah.
we good,
Yeah.
but who are called according to his purpose. In
Mm.
order for the former to happen, you've got to have that. Like, are you willing to do what he's called you to do
I love
according
it.
to his purpose? Not mine, not Brigitta's,
Mhm.
not anybody else's, but
Mhm.
his. And so, if you will take the leap, take the leap.
Mhm.
I want to encourage you to do that, even when you can't see how it's going to work out. Maybe financially, you're thinking, "How am I going to do this?" I mean, it's a lucrative career,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I knew that he was calling me to greater.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage you to listen to the tug and
Mhm.
to take the leap, and as long as you remain obedient to him, anything is possible. And
Yeah.
delay does not mean denied.
Yeah. I'm gonna keep that one. Delay does not mean denied. That's a big one.
Mhm.
Just like Elijah, he waited for years. So it takes time. It takes time sometimes. Sometimes God can move quickly and sometimes it takes years. Go ahead.
Right, and sometimes that taking of the years is preparation. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of times when we are in a season of waiting, we
Mhm.
feel like we've been cast aside. Like, think about being in
Yes.
the waiting room and you're waiting on your name to be called, or,
Mhm.
in restaurants, of course, pre-pandemic, or you're waiting for your
Right.
party to be called. And,
Yep.
you would see, "Oh, wait, we got here before them, and their
Yep.
name is called." Like,
Yep.
waiting is preparation, it's not punishment. So
Mm.
if you are in the waiting room, don't discount the waiting. Don't discount,
Mhm.
the silent seasons. Like,
Mhm.
everybody wants to be in the harvest, but don't
Yes.
discount the sowing. Like, the same day you plant the seed is not the same day you pick the fruit. And we have
Nope.
to remember that. So it, even if it's years for us. Because what does
Mhm.
his word say about timing? Like, to
Yep.
him, what's 1,000 days to him is a single day for us, and vice
Mhm.
versa,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So trust him, trust the waiting. Like, God's not going to move you into your next season unless you're prepared. And sometimes we're still in the waiting room because it's preparation, it's not punishment.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
I would also encourage people
Good.
to remember that.
Yeah, that's really good. Holly Furtick preached a sermon about the waiting room,
Mhm.
and she mentioned to get to work. While you're waiting, get to work, because when you are working, time flies.
Mhm.
And so you don't really look at your watch and say, okay, how long has it been? You're working.
Yeah.
And so that resonated with me. So that's a really good, there's so many gems from what you just said. I'm going to have to watch the replay and just write it down as a
Right.
refresher to it's preparation. So how
Yes,
can I prepare? It's not punishment.
and you wanna be prepared. Like, when your name is called, when God does
Hmm.
call you, you
Oh,
better be
yes.
prepared,
Yes.
And that's the
Yes.
other thing. A lot of times when we see other people, comparison is the thief of joy, right? We
Yes.
know that. And you see other people being blessed and they're in their
Hmm.
harvest. Well, you don't know how long they were in their sowing season. You
Nope.
don't know how long they were in the waiting room.
Nope. That's true.
So use this time wisely. Like, I want to be
Hmm.
prepared so
Yep.
that when God opens that door,
I'm ready.
yes, you can walk into that
I'm
room
ready with
like He
confidence.
sent you there, and
Mm.
you know you're prepared for
Yep.
the blessing that is to come.
Yes. Preach, Pastor Brigida, Pastor Mack.
Sorry. I get
No,
so excited.
I
I get
love
revved
it.
up,
I
So
love it. That
thanks
is,
for indulging that.
of course. No, this, you're walking in your calling right now and in your
Yeah.
purpose. And I just thank you for your advice. I thank you for who you are. I look forward to seeing you just continue to become all that God has created you to be, and for what's to come next in your career path, in your life in general. So thank you again. And I hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brittany, for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you for reaching out.
Of
I'm
course.
thrilled to be a part of your series, and I wish you all the best as
Thank
you
you.
continue to step into everything that He's calling you to be.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
And thank you all for watching. I don't know about you, but a weight has been lifted since listening to Brigitta. I feel confident to wait with purpose and intention. And I know that the best is yet to come for you as well, just as it is for Brigitta. So in Jeremiah 29:11, it says, God has plans for us, plans to prosper us and not to harm us, plans to give us a hope and a future. And I believe just as He has plans for Brigitta and for myself, He has plans for you. So trust the process, do some work in the wait, and watch God blow your mind. I look forward to seeing you become all that God has created you to be. Thanks for watching.